So here is all 54 new games that I played last year. I'm only including things that I had played for the first time. We're only including things that were new experiences for me, with a couple exceptions. And the reason that there's a couple exceptions is because they are games that I had started not last year, so prior to last year, but I had not played them in a long time, and when I came back to them last year, I basically just replayed them from the beginning. So in my mind, that's basically like I played it for the first time. So I'll note those when we get to them, but the vast majority of everything on here was a brand new game that I had not played before. Let's get started, and right out the gate, we've got two very interesting ones because these are the two games that I've been playing the most recently, and we played through all the way on stream. But let's start with Alan Wake. I liked Alan Wake. I'm very glad that it was suggested to be played by my community. But what I will say about it is that it's a game that definitely shows its age. It's from 2010, and not everything has aged super well. For me, like, B tier is basically like, that's kind of like the middle ground, I suppose. That's kind of like the standard. Like, this game was like good. Like, that's it. It was good. I don't really have anything more to say than that. It was good. I feel like below that, we're getting to the stuff where I was like, okay, I'm starting to not like it, or there was like a lot wrong with the game, lots to criticize. With Alan Wake, I don't think there's really like a whole lot to criticize. It's just very like, it's just very standard. I liked Alan Wake, but I didn't think it was anything spectacular, the first one. If I had to pick something to criticize about Alan Wake, is that I think the tone of the game is a bit inconsistent. You know, the game is kind of framed as a horror game. Well, okay, I guess according to Remedy themselves, I think the way that they describe it, that it is a psychological thriller. And I think for the most part, that's not really an apt description. The game is basically just an action game for the most part. There's very little about it that's scary. And I don't think the game does any favors itself to like lend to the scare factor, you know? Like, the characters are all like goofy, especially like Barry. Like, Barry's character is already like a character like, yeah, that's like late 2000s like schlock right there. Like, I would be so shocked if he returned in the sequel. And then there's just like certain parts of the game where it's like pure action, like the part in chapter 4 where you're on the rock concert stage and you're just like fighting hordes of enemies. So it's like, you know, the game's not scary, and I don't think that's particularly like a negative, but it is something to criticize when the game is trying to frame itself as something that is at least a little bit scary, a psychological thriller, if you will. So yeah, I think that's like kind of the weaker aspects of Alan Wake, but I also like that it's goofy. Like, I like that it's goofy. I think it's something to criticize, but I do like that it's goofy. And you know, I could get more in depth into the like specific like story things. Like, I feel like the game, it kind of wants you to make some like suspend your disbelief a little bit with the like explanation that like, oh, you know, Alan wrote it to be this way, and so like that's just kind of how it is for certain things in the game. I'm okay with suspending my disbelief for some of those things. I personally don't have to like really nitpick and pick apart the story like that. So I do think that it is a game that just kind of sits around a solid B. I enjoyed playing it on stream. I had fun. It was goofy. Some of the chapters maybe could have been a little shorter, but for the most part, I enjoyed my time with it. I'm going to do my best also to order these, which is going to be difficult when we get to some of the stuff in the middle. So, and now we can move on to the other big banger of last year, which was Alien Isolation. Now, Alien Isolation, I liked a good deal more. I think it's a game that's very, very well made. That's honestly like the highest praise that I can give the game. It is extremely well made. It's well designed. Everything from the atmosphere to the sound design to the models, which like look really good for 2014, surprisingly. The story and the setting and the ship like that you're in really feels like lived in. I think there's a lot to like about Alien Isolation. However, I think my one criticism, now that I've beaten the game, and now for context, I play the game on hard difficulty, which was the hardest difficulty when the game first came out, and is also the difficulty that the developers recommend that you play the game on. I think that the difficulty of the game is not a very smooth curve. I think it's like at the beginning, it's a very steep, very steep learning curve. And then you kind of reach a point where you get the good items, which in this case is like the flamethrower, Molotovs, EMPs, the stuff that can deal with the enemies like very efficiently. And then at that point, the game kind of becomes trivial almost, even on hard difficulty. So you kind of have this dichotomy where like the first third of the game is like very difficult, and then you get the good items, and then you're like, okay, I'm good now. I never felt like I was ever like running low on resources until the end, but the only reason that happened was because I went collectible hunting off stream, and unfortunately the game, if you're playing on hard difficulty, is really not meant for you to be looking for collectibles, because the alien will hunt you the entire time. Like, I'm just trying to go back through areas that I've been through and pick up collectibles that I want, and I got the alien on my ass the whole time, so I had to waste a lot of like flamethrower fuel and Molotovs and stuff like that while I was just trying to look for collectibles. So that is unfortunate. I'm not gonna say that that's a specific criticism that I have against the game, you know, because you can just play the game on easy. There's a mode that you can play it on where if you want to go get all the collectibles, you can. You know, hard mode is like the way that the game is meant to be played if you're going for that like challenging, stressful horror experience. So that was kind of my own fault. But I never felt like for a majority of the game I was ever low on resources, or that I was like struggling to find resources. And I would even go as far to say that the item crafting was probably the weakest part of the game, just because it felt like most of the items served very little purpose, if any at all. And the reason that I'm saying this is because the items are kind of basically split into their own like uses, where like some are for the aliens, some are for the robots, and some are for the humans, because most of the items won't work on the alien. So you kind of have this scenario where most of the time I can't use items because the threat that you're dealing with most of the time is the alien. And if you're ever at the point where you're dealing with robots, they give you two items that are basically like checkmate against the robots. They give you the EMPs and they give you the bolt gun. And those will just immediately wipe out all the robots. You don't need to use anything else other than that. And there's actually a lot less human encounters in the game than I thought there would be. And basically the best way to get through the human encounters is to just shoot one in the head, let the alien arrive, and then it kills the rest of them. So like most of the items, like the noisemaker, the smoke bomb, the flashbangs, like the pipe bomb. I don't think I've used a pipe bomb even one time. Just seemed like they served very little purpose and were not very helpful to me. So I just kind of wish that there was more use cases for all of the items. It's just like most of the time, like I had like 3 out of 3, like full on every item in the game. The other thing that I was going to mention is that I thought that the last couple missions were kind of the weakest part of the game. They kind of just artificially inflate the difficulty by saying, okay, now you got to deal with 2 alien. What are you going to do now? The same thing that I've been doing the whole time, I guess. And there's a lot of parts where you're walking outside of the ship and you walk so ungodly slow when you're in a spacesuit outside of the ship. It was very annoying. So kind of a weak last couple missions in the game, unfortunately. But all of this is to say that like a lot of the game was so strong that the parts that were kind of weaker really stood out to me. So I think it's still fair to say that Alien Isolation is an amazing survival horror game. Like it had the desired effect, the desired emotions within me the entire time. Like I was so stressed playing this game the entire time. Like my chest was tight. I was barely breathing. I was so stressed out the entire time playing, so too long. I can kind of see that. Just remove the sections where I'm walking outside in a spacesuit, and then we're good. Maybe like 1 or 2 missions could be cut out, but I enjoyed most of the missions. It was honestly just the ones where like, I think like the flashback where we're playing as the other guy finding the recorder, that probably could have just been a cutscene. I didn't have to really play through that. That felt like really long and drawn out. And then like make the last couple missions, like I get that you kind of have to do stuff outside of the ship, but just make it go by faster. I think that would have been a really good and efficient way to trim some of the fat in the game. But I liked it a lot. I'm really glad that I played it. So that's a solid A tier in my opinion. All right, so now we're gonna start moving into the stuff that some of you guys may not know. A lot of these games are games that I played on Game Pass because they were leaving. I have Game Pass and I kind of use it to play a bunch of like indie games that I normally wouldn't play. And what I do basically is that I check which ones are leaving and then I play those if they're like short enough for me to play. So that brings us to a game called Anuchard. Anuchard was a little 2D dungeon crawler. It was a game that I played on Game Pass when it was leaving. The game was pretty good. My biggest compliment that I can give it is that I really like the art style. Obviously it's 2D pixel art, but specifically like the colors that they use and the designs for some of the characters as well as some of the bosses I really enjoyed. I think everything else was pretty ho-hum for the most part. I think this game was not originally written in English. I think it was localized, and the localization team did not do a very good job in my opinion. The writing is kind of all over the place for one. Different characters will speak with like very different and inconsistent dialects, and there is lots of like little grammatical and spelling errors all over the place, as well as I'm remembering that there was some of the VFX in the game were not the same resolution as the rest of the art, so those really also stood out as like looking kind of bad and amateurish. But beyond that, those are all more kind of nitpicky. I thought the main gameplay loop itself was pretty fun. I enjoyed the dungeon crawling. I think the combat was pretty simple, and that's honestly, or the most that I can say about the game is that it was okay. Yes, okay. I kind of forgot because I played this game towards the beginning of the year. The game is a bit longer than I thought it should be. It didn't really start to become interesting until like the second half of the game. The first half was very boring. That's really kind of the only way that I can describe it. It was a bit boring in the first half. It didn't really start to become interesting until the second half of the game. And yeah, I think the game just needed some more polish for sure. I think there was some potential. It was definitely not the worst game that I've ever played. And there was some charming things about it. Again, I really liked the presentation of the art and the designs of certain things and the color. So I think all of that was definitely the strongest parts of the game. But I just wish that it was a lot more polished and some of the fat was trimmed and some of the bugs were taken out. Where do I want to put this? Because like I feel like in my brain I was like, yeah, I liked it, but there definitely were problems. And I don't know if I want to put it in C because that feels like too harsh. So it's like really riding the border of B and C for me, but I think I'm gonna put it in B. And as we go on, I'm sure this will get pushed to be at the end of B. All right, moving on. Balatro. I don't need to explain Balatro. And this is gonna be quick because I really didn't play a lot of Balatro. I mean, obviously everybody loves it. It's a game that if you really like those kinds of games, like that kind of roguelike, you're really gonna like it. But for someone like me, it's like, yeah, it's cool. It's fun. I think it's well made. I think the premise is very interesting, but it's not something, at least right now, and maybe as I play it more, my opinion will change, but I played like maybe 10 games of it, and I was like, yeah, I liked it. I didn't think it was anything amazing, but I liked it. So moving on quickly, that one gets slapped in B tier. That is where I'm putting Balatro because I played it for a few games. I liked it. I don't really feel so inclined to really get back into it and like dedicate my whole life to it. So moving on, Battlefield 6. This is kind of another similar situation. Came out towards the end of the year. Played it for a little bit with friends who wanted me to get the game and play it with them. Only played the Battle Royale, the free version. I did not buy the game, so keep that in mind. And yeah, it's kind of just another scenario where I was like, yeah, I liked it. It was good. I probably won't play it anymore unless, for whatever reason, my friends are like, oh, let's hop on Battlefield 6. Okay. But I think it's good. I'm happy that Battlefield had a win because the last few games that they put out have been kind of shitty. So yeah, I think, it was good. I don't really have like any kind of basis to criticize the game on. I will say that, the one thing that I was thinking the entire time that I was playing it was the default control scheme was kind of strange. And I'm trying to remember, because it's been a bit now, what exactly that was. I think it was like the crouching was on very strange buttons, and like crouching and proning were on different buttons or something like that. It was something weird. And I was trying to figure out if I could change it, and I couldn't find a way to, but I wasn't trying very hard. I got used to it. But, you know, beyond that, standard Battle Royale, I think it's kind of a bit of information overload, but you know, whatever. I think it's a solid B. I promise we're gonna get to some games that are worse than this, but like I said, I think for me, the baseline of like how good a game is like B is like where the average is at. So I think a good amount of games are probably gonna be in B tier. All right. Botany Manor. So this was a puzzle game. Oh my god, it's $25. I would not pay $25 for this game. That's definitely a point to criticize. So this is a puzzle game where the whole premise is that you're in a garden, basically. So all the puzzles are like revolve around botany, plants and stuff like that. And you're kind of like going through this mansion and putting together the pieces of the story that has like played out before you. So interesting. That's crazy that it's $25. I was not expecting it to be that much. So the game is pretty short. So that's really shocking to me. I thought the puzzles were pretty good. There wasn't really any point where I got like extremely lost. I do think, because it kind of has this mechanic where it's like the game is split up into like certain sections of the house, but in each section there's like 3 or 4 puzzles that you have to solve, and you don't always, like, if you get a piece to one of those puzzles, you don't always know which one it's supposed to go towards. So I think that was maybe a little unclear at sometimes. I do remember thinking that there's a puzzle at the end of the game where you had to like enter a part, yeah, right there where the game is showing it. You have to like walk on that pond there, and there was nothing in the game that like indicated that you were able to walk on water, that like lily pads were gonna sprout on the water and you would be able to walk on them. So I think just like, you know, presentation issues, really just issues with like the information that it gives you. And obviously, you know, it's a puzzle game, you don't want it to give you all the information, but there was a couple times where it was a bit unclear. Oh yeah, and then, you know, just some other minor spelling nitpick things, errors with the UI, some pop-in on some of the models, but yeah, I think it was solid. That's definitely just another B tier game right there. I would probably put it right here. Moving on, we have a game called Bronzebeard's Tavern. So we're encountering our first friend slop of the tier list right now. I played this like once. I think I literally played this one time. I liked it. I like the chaos of it, but it doesn't seem like it's a game that scales well, because you know, once you get past like a few days on it, you start to get like all the AIs that basically do everything for you. So I have a hard time imagining how the game would be fun for more than one day. And I know there's like, if the game is free, but there's a bunch of DLCs that are pretty expensive, if I'm being honest. The AI sucked though. I didn't really get to experience that a lot because my game kept crashing. For whatever reason as well, my game kept crashing when I was playing it. It's kind of unfortunate that it has the model that it has in terms of monetization. Typically with these friend slop games, what they do is that they just charge you like $5-6, and then like that's it. with Bronzebeard's Tavern, it has like a gacha system in the game where you unlock like the customization stuff. You know, that's all superfluous, but kind of annoying. And yeah, like I said, it just seems like it's a game that like would be fun one time. I don't really see how it could be that entertaining or interesting as you get past like a certain part in the game, certain part of progression. Once you basically upgrade everything, which doesn't take that long to do, I can't imagine how the game would continue to be fun at that point. Also, the one thing that kind of sucked was that there was this mechanic in the game of like a door dasher basically, and it was a minotaur, and it would arrive at your restaurant and you would have to like quickly give it an order. But when I say quickly, I mean like within like 2 seconds, which is like, I don't understand how that is okay. Like literally you don't know it's gonna come. It like announces its presence like maybe 10 seconds before it arrives, shows up, wants you to give it 3 items within like 3 seconds, and if you don't, then you get like a big penalty. So it just seems like something that's like, I'm shocked that it exists in that form and like wasn't tested at all. But everything else I think was fun. I think I do appreciate the fact that it like, the movement is pretty fun. Like you can like jump around all over the place and run around, which is fun, and like throw things. I appreciated that. I appreciated the chaos that it instilled. But again, that only really lasts until you upgrade everything, which again doesn't really take that long. You could get there in like a few hours. So it's definitely not a game that can continue to be fun for a long period of time. And again, for me personally, I had a lot of crashing issues. So I think in terms of friend swap, it's not one of the better ones. I think I would honestly put it in like C tier. All right, let's move on. So this is the first game from developer Joseph Fares, who you may know as the creator of games like It Takes Two, Split Fiction, A Way Out, etc., etc. So it's that style of game, right? Where it's like a cooperative story game. But this was his first attempt at it. And the game is not, I think you can play it multiplayer, but it was designed so that you don't have to. It's not forced multiplayer like It Takes Two and Split Fiction. So you can play the game completely single player. And with how that works, you take your controller and control one person with this stick and then one person with the other stick, which is very clunky, as you can probably imagine. Obviously, you know, doing it more, you get used to it a bit, but I did still think it is clunky, even after being used to it. So that is a knock against the game. The game doesn't look great. It's old. I don't remember exactly what year it came out, but it's not the best looking game. It's very simple. Like, again, it's like the first attempt at, Joseph Fares' first attempt at doing a game like this, but it was exceedingly simple. Like all the solutions to the puzzles were very clear, very easy, very clean cut, and the story was very predictable. It did not move me in the slightest, and I didn't know, like I had not seen any footage of the game. I didn't know anything about the story before playing it. I just inferred what was going to happen because it seemed very obvious. And so when, you know, the reveal at the end happens, I'm not going to spoil it, but I was just not emotionally moved in the way that the game wanted me to be. So I was a little bit disappointed after hearing like how good the game was, or at least how it was held in high regard. I was kind of disappointed by that. It left a lot to be desired for me personally. I didn't think it was bad, but it was simple. It was very simple. It was very predictable. So, and I think that would have been fine if it like was a random game that I didn't know about, but since it was a game that like, again, a lot of people hold it in high regard, I was kind of disappointed by that. So I do think this is another C tier game that I played last year. I definitely wanted to like it more, but I just really didn't find myself being that impressed at the end of the day. All right, moving on. So this is a little bit hard to see, but this is a game called Chants of Sennaar. Right out the gate, before I say anything about this game, I really like this game. This is a very good game. I knew nothing about it. It was on Game Pass. It was leaving Game Pass. And I took a look at it, saw that I could beat it fairly quickly, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance. And then I played it and was like, holy shit, this game is good. This game good. And you can see it has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, which that makes me really happy because I literally never heard of this game before, but it was great. I really liked it a lot. Basically, the premise is that you're this person that is in a foreign land, and there's a bunch of different factions that all speak their own language, and it's up to you to decipher all of their different languages, and you do that using their like symbols that they use for their alphabet. And so you can use that to decipher the words that they're saying with the goal of like deciphering all the languages and getting them to all understand each other. And I have to say, the way that they implemented those mechanics was like really, really well done. This game is very good. I'm finding it hard to think of negative things to say. The mechanics for deciphering all of the words and things like that is basically what would happen is that you would find the words in like the environment, and you would use context clues to kind of like, you know, deduce what each word was, and as well as like you would talk to the NPCs in each area, and like based on the words that they were saying, you would like figure out what they were saying. And just like the whole entire system of like finding the words, deciphering what they're saying, having the different NPCs from different areas talk to each other, and like use that to help you figure out words. That like, I really, really liked that. I am now remembering after watching this trailer, the one thing that I did not like about the game was that there are, for whatever reason, some stealth sections in the game. And I do think that they are kind of out of place for what this game is, and almost kind of an afterthought. They were a little bit underbaked. I think that is the only reason why I wouldn't put the game in S tier, because you very infrequently have to do these sections where you're sneaking around. And I just remember specifically in one area in the second world where it was very annoying to get through, and I didn't really like it that much. I didn't really understand what the purpose of them was. It really didn't fit with the rest of the game. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that. That is probably my only criticism of the game that I would have to say. But beyond that, everything else is really good. I really like the art. I really like the premise. I really like how they implemented the gameplay mechanics for something that would seem like it would be tedious, right? Like, I read the description of the game and I was like, I'll try it, but it kind of seems like I may not really like it that much. But the mechanics, the way that they did it was really, really good and very, very engaging. And it makes you feel good when you figure out what's going on and figure out the words. I can't put this game any lower than A. Did I like it more than Alien Isolation? I think I liked it more. That's kind of where my brain is going at now. After beating Alien Isolation, I think it's very clear where the parts that I have issues with arise. And again, with Chants of Sennaar, literally the only thing that I can think of to criticize it is that it has some stealth sections that feel out of place and a little underbaked. I think that's where I'm going to put it. Moving right along with amazing games, we have COCOON. This one might be one that you guys have heard of before. I certainly had heard of it. It made a lot of waves when it came out for being very good. That's crazy to me that this doesn't have an overwhelmingly positive. I love this game. This game, I basically have almost nothing to criticize. I don't even remember if there was anything that I did criticize. This is an incredible puzzle game, and I am just so impressed how they were able to implement the main mechanic of the game, which is like, you can see you like inception yourself into these like little balls that are entire worlds. And in like my game developer brain, I'm like, how did they even do that and like make it the transition so smooth and like no loading, no pop in, no nothing. Like, it's seamless. That's like the most impressive part of the game to me. But oh, okay, I do have one thing to criticize. It's a very small criticism, but we'll get to that. This is one of the best puzzle games that I've played, period. I was incredibly impressed with the technology on display, as well as the creativity of some of the puzzles. Very stylistically strong, very realized art style and world. Like, it's really, really good. It's really, really good, guys. I think you all should definitely play this game. I would highly recommend it. This game is not similar to RV there yet. What are we on Steam? Anyways, now that I'm remembering, the one thing that I did have a little bit of an issue with, the game has certain sections that are not puzzles. It has a couple bosses, and it has a couple sections that I can only describe as shooting sections, because that's basically what you do, is you just shoot a little gun. And I didn't have an issue with them themselves, but unfortunately with these sections, if you lost them, you would have to restart the whole thing, which became a little bit annoying sometimes. If for whatever reason you didn't succeed on your first try, you would have to restart the entire thing, and that was a little bit annoying. Again, very, very small nitpick. It was just a little bit annoying, and I kind of wish that I didn't have to redo the whole thing. But that's it. That's the only thing that I can think of that was even remotely not like perfect about the game. This is our first S tier of the night, and I listed it as my favorite game that I played last year on Twitter. So everybody should play this game. It was amazing. I really, really, really liked it. And again, just so impressed by the technology. All right, moving on. We've got Crash Bandicoot 3 here, and this might seem a little odd. This was a part of the Crash Bandicoot N.Sane trilogy, which I started years ago, but only finally came around to finishing it at the beginning of last year. So my opinion of the game is gonna kind of be a little bit framed based on that. Based on, one, that it's the N.Sane trilogy version, and two, it's impossible to talk about the quality of the game without comparing it to the first two Crash games. The trilogy is kind of just a package deal. So with that in mind, I liked Crash 3. I liked all the Crash Bandicoots. I definitely thought Crash 3 was the easiest Crash of the three, which I wouldn't say is particularly a criticism of the game, but it was the easiest. It definitely had the most stupid gimmick levels. Many of the levels in the game were like vehicle levels, which were definitely the weakest parts of the game. Like the motorcycle levels, the handling on those was atrocious. Airplane levels were brain dead easy. You literally didn't have to think to beat those. The jet ski levels were very annoying. They were fun sometimes, but they were also very annoying because, again, the handling on it was subpar. And so I liked the theming of Crash 3. And again, the levels were easy. Just the handling on a lot of those vehicle levels was very annoying. And I just wish there was less. I get that it's the whole point, but it honestly was the part of the game that I disliked the most. I think it sits in the middle of the three Crashes, but it's definitely close to the first Crash. I enjoyed it. I think the N.Sane trilogy as a whole, I would definitely probably put in A tier, since you're getting, all three games. And if it's got Crash 2 in it, it's going to be good, because Crash 2 is very good. But Crash 3 on its own, it didn't make me exceedingly angry, and I didn't think that there was a lot that I disliked about it. I'll probably put it here. I think that's a good spot. All right, Deltarune. Deltarune's kind of a hard topic because the game is not finished. This is one of the scenarios where I said that I started the game before this year, but this year I replayed it from the beginning. So my experience with Deltarune, I played Chapter 1 when it first came out, and then didn't play anymore. So obviously when Chapter 3 and 4 came out, the official release of the game, I was like, all right, I'm just going to replay it from the beginning, and we streamed it. And I had a lot of fun streaming it. And, Undertale is one of my favorite games of all time. And for lack of a better description, Deltarune is basically just Undertale, but better. There's definitely individual things to criticize about each chapter. I think Chapter 3, for me personally, was the weakest chapter, just because I think the first half of it drags on for a little too long. I liked the video game boards, but I think there needed to be less. Everything else, I didn't really have an issue with. That's kind of the only thing that stood out to me in my mind, but obviously it has all of the same aspects of Deltarune that I really, really love. Amazing characters, the art's very cute, the music is incredible, and I'm really intrigued by the story, to see where it's going. But it's hard for me to rate the game because it's not over. The game is not done yet. We still have 3 chapters. However, I find it hard to fathom, to imagine that Toby Fox will fumble the end of the game or will make a mistake in these last 3 chapters. I really find that hard to believe. So I do think that when it's done, Deltarune will be an S tier experience. It'll probably be one of my favorite games ever. I don't really need to go any deeper than that in terms of like, you know, why Deltarune, what makes Deltarune so good. It's just like a personal thing, you know? It's not a game that's ever gonna get nominated for any awards, but it holds a very special place to my heart because Undertale holds a very special place in my heart. So I just want to see more. I want the rest of the chapters to be out. I want to know how the rest of it plays out, but I'm sure that by the end, it will be an S tier experience. It is going to go below Cocoon just because, again, the game's not finished. Ooh. Now the next one's very interesting. Very, very interesting. The next game, for anybody that may not know, is Disney Princess Enchanted Journey. You might be thinking, Sorfeo, why did you play this game last year? Well, I'll tell you. I played it because every once in a while, I let my friends and community members of the stream vote on a game that they want me to play. And lo and behold, Disney Princess Enchanted Journey was one of those winners. It was a highly requested game. So I did play it on stream. And I had a lot of fun. Okay? I had a lot of fun. The game is not good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the Disney Princess Enchanted Journey enjoyers. It's not a good game. It's a game made for little babies. It's not engaging. It's very lazy in a lot of ways. It doesn't look very good. It has difficulty for whatever reason, but there's literally no difference in the difficulty of any of the levels. It's all just the same. The difficulty curve is a flat line. And there's a bonus secret level that's not even a level. If you like beat everything, you get to unlock the secret 5th level, and it's just one game of tag and is literally over within 2 minutes. I was like, what the fuck? So yeah, not good. Not a good game. I mean, you really can't expect a licensed Disney game, on average, to be good. Obviously, there are exceptions, but, you know, this is a Wii game from, like, 2007, so it really didn't have much of a chance of being good anyways, never did it. But no, it was not a good game. Again, I had fun. That stream was very fun. I enjoyed it. It's not a good game. D tier. Next, Dordogne. So, this is another scenario of a Game Pass game that I played because it was leaving. I'm trying to think of like what this game would be classified as, because like my brain immediately went to like puzzle game, but it's not really a puzzle game. It really kind of is just like a walking sim for the most part, even though you're not like first person walking, but that's like kind of the closest description that I can give the game. You just walk around a house, you do some mini games every once in a while that are very easy, and that's kind of it. There's really not much to the game. It was another scenario of where it's kind of boring for the first half and then starts to get better halfway through. The best thing that I can say about it is that it has a very nice art style. But as far as a game goes, as far as like how good of a game it is, it's really not a game for the most part. And it had an achievement that pissed me off because there's an achievement where you like, so the game is split up into chapters, and there's an achievement where you have to use the toilet every chapter. And for whatever reason, you cannot like chapter select and go back and get to the toilet that you missed. And you have to like replay the whole game if you want to get it. It was very annoying. Yeah, just like most of the gameplay elements that are in the game are like not real. It's very much just like an experience. It's not really a game. That's not to say it was bad. Again, I thought it was pretty meh in the beginning, and then as I played it and we reached the second half, it got better. and I was starting to enjoy it. It's just kind of whatever. I wasn't particularly moved by it, which was, you know, like kind of the whole point of the game. I did think the voice acting was actually pretty good for all the characters that did have spoken lines. I was actually kind of impressed by that. But yeah, I wouldn't say to like not play it. I probably, yeah, like $6, like sure. I probably wouldn't pay $15 for it though. So that's definitely a C. I'll probably put it here. It was better than Brothers. But again, really with Dordogne, I don't have really much to criticize. The only thing that I can really say is that it was just okay. Well, let's move on. Escape Academy. Another puzzle game that was leaving Game Pass, with the premise being that all of the puzzles are framed as an escape room. So you have to get through a bunch of different escape rooms, and you're going to a school for people that like learn how to escape rooms. Kind of a strange premise, but makes it so that we can have a lot of fun escape rooms. I liked it. There definitely was some things that I didn't like as much, and that's kind of more directed at the multiplayer. So for whatever reason, this game has a multiplayer mode. So I'm going to talk about that first because I think that's the more interesting thing to talk about. It has a multiplayer mode where you basically like can do a versus escape room. So like you and your friend are in the same escape room and you have to like solve puzzles quicker and like be the first one to escape. They put a lot of effort into the multiplayer mode, and I really can't imagine why, because the way that it's structured is like very clunky. It's not like you and your opponent, your friend, whatever, are in like two separate rooms doing the same thing. You're in the same room and you have like certain things that are color coded for you and certain things that are color coded for your opponent. And so like you have to run around the same room and bump into each other a bunch to try and like find the things that are yours and then start solving all the puzzles. And then there's also like random power-ups that are in it. They're like make you run faster or like debuff your opponent. It's really weird. It's very, very weird. Again, I really can't imagine why this mode exists. I don't think there was an online for it either. I could be wrong on that. But I think it was all local. So it's just like, it's really weird. Really, really weird. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because it brought down my experience personally, because they also made it a lot of achievements tied to the multiplayer mode, which I was not a fan of. And like not quick ones either, like ones where you had to play like 50 games of the multiplayer mode, which is like grueling. So I didn't appreciate that. But speaking on the actual main game itself, it was fun. I don't think I really had a big issue with any of the main game. And yeah, now that I'm reading my review, this was kind of the thought that I was forming in my head. Each room had like a difficulty, but it didn't really seem like there was any difference in difficulty between the rooms for the most part. And honestly, the biggest issue is that some of the there's not really any world indication that can tell you what is interactable and what's not. So all the interactable items kind of blend into the background. So the only time that I did get stuck, it was because there was something in the environment that I thought was not interactable that actually was interactable. And so that's why I couldn't move forward. And yeah, the other thing was that the 3D models are a little bit rough for the humans mainly. I think it was good. It definitely had some rough edges, but it was good. So I think that's probably on the lower B side, above Anuchard. It's better than Crash 3. This is gonna be the hard part now, sorting through all these B level games. No, I think it's right there. Okay, so now let's rapid fire through these guys. So I played for the first time the first 4 Five Nights at Freddy's games, which is crazy because most of them are 10 years old by now. If I had to quickly generalize my thoughts, I thought that most of them generally were on the same level of quality, except for 3, which I would consider to be the worst. And each game does one aspect the best. 1 is cool because of the atmosphere. 2 is cool because it's like difficult. 2 is not as scary, but it's like the difficult one. 3 is cool for the lore. And 4 is cool because it's the only one that's like genuinely scary. But again, I think that most of them were just kind of at the same level of quality, which was good. And 3 is probably a little bit lower just because that one is exceedingly easy. Also, I think the shortest game out of the 4. So again, 3 kind of really serves to just be cool lore-wise. And I won't take that away from it, but I do think it is probably the weakest of the 4, excuse me, Five Nights at Freddy's games. So we're gonna toss all the Freddy's. I'll just toss them in at the end of B tier. And then 3 is gonna go in C tier. Where in C tier, I'm not sure. But probably here. All right, moving on. We've got a game called FREST. Now, I'm sure most of you have never heard of this game, but all I can say, S tier. Go play it. It happens to be free on Steam right now. So I think everybody should go play it and give it a try. I'll stop being coy about it. It's the game that I made. So we made this game as a part of my curriculum at my college. Took 8 months to develop with a small team, and I'm pretty proud of it. It's definitely rough in certain areas, but I'm proud of it. And it's free, so, you know, you don't lose anything. So go try it. Now let's actually move on. Hollow Knight. We already know where this is going to go, but I will still talk about the things that I liked and disliked. Obviously, Hollow Knight is very well made, and as far as Metroidvanias go, it is, you know, the standard. What's more interesting to talk about is a couple things that I didn't like very much. Those being, there are certain challenges in the game that are basically just endurance tests, and I don't really like that much. And the specific things that come to my mind are the final Colosseum trial and the Path of Pain. I think I would be okay with them if they just weren't so long. The last Colosseum challenge takes like 15 minutes to get through, 20 minutes to get through. And obviously if you fail, you gotta redo the whole thing from the start. Path of Pain is kind of in a similar scenario, where Path of Pain is really long, but they give you checkpoints. The problem is that besides the secret route, the checkpoints in the Path of Pain are so few and far between that, again, if you mess up, you have to redo so much. And that just got very, very tiresome after a while. I think the game definitely could have cut down both of those things to not be nearly as long, and then I would have no issue with it. And then the other thing is that I generally dislike when games make like very simple or like standard game mechanics upgrades. So like in Hollow Knight, you have to unlock the wall jump and you have to unlock a double jump. And that's like, really, like, do we really need to do that? And it just makes replaying the game like feel kind of shitty at the beginning, because then I have to go through and get all of these upgrades that I've been used to having in my previous playthrough. So that's just kind of annoying. But beyond that, I don't think I really have anything else that I disliked about the game. Obviously, it looks amazing. It plays amazing. The music is very good. The bosses are difficult, but doable if you put your mind to it. Except for Absolute Radiance. Absolute Radiance can fuck right off. I did beat it, by the way. And, you know, this was one of the instances of a game where it's like, this game is very highly regarded, and I played it, and I can see why, like, very clearly, and I agree. You know, it deserves to be regarded as one of the best games of all time. So it deservedly gets put in S tier. I do still think that I liked COCOON more, just because, again, with COCOON, there really was nothing, like barely anything to criticize about COCOON. Moving on, we've got a little game called R.E.P. This is a 2D horror puzzle game that was recommended to me by a community member to play for Halloween. It is a very short game and features a character that I very much did not like. So I think the game is solid, but there are certain parts of it that brought down the experience a little bit for me. Mainly that one of the main characters is very insufferable. And then I find out that the game has multiple endings, and your ending like basically hinges on how you decided to interact with the one character that I found insufferable. So I got a bad ending because I wasn't nice to that guy. So I think it's cool. I think it's a neat little game. The controls are a little bit weird. It has the character that I don't really like a lot. And the process for unlocking everything is kind of long. You have to play the game a few times, which is a bit unfortunate because, again, it's really short, which is good, but you're not really like doing anything new for the most part. I think there is some new areas that unlock on a second playthrough. I haven't played them, but I doubt that it's going to be enough to really improve my opinion of the game. I'm sure it's just going to be more of the same. Unfortunately, I do think Ebe is kind of in C tier for me. It's very neat. It's very cute, but I do think it could be a lot better. Probably here. I think that's good. All right, moving on. So, Journey to the Savage Planet. This was another Game Pass game. It's a first-person shooter, basically like a Halo-like, if you will, in a lot of ways. First-person shooter where you're stranded on a planet and you get to explore the planet, fight some bosses, and repair your ship so that you can leave. And the big thing is that you could play it with a friend. And I definitely think that made the experience more enjoyable. I probably wouldn't have liked it as much if I was just playing it by myself. But yeah, this is just another example of a game that I played that was just pretty solid. It looks very visually pleasing. I did think that the combat was pretty simple, which is kind of presented like there would be more, but it's basically pretty simple. You basically just have one gun that shoots, and then you have a bunch of different throwable items, which do various effects. So the combat was leaving some things to be desired. I do wish that it was a little bit more fleshed out. Combat and exploration kind of went hand in hand, so it was basically like a 50-50 split. So yeah, I do kind of think I wish that the combat was a bit more fleshed out. Game is a little bit buggy in at certain times. We did run into a couple bugs, like dying or going out of bounds in weird places, and just some like weird interactions. So, you know, not the most polished game ever. I enjoyed playing it, and again, I think I liked it a bit more because I played it co-op. What I did not like very much was that I had to play the game like 3 times to get all the achievements, which that was kind of annoying, but I think it was good. It's paced well. It's engaging. The exploration is engaging. It's got some boss fights to help spruce things up here and there. Solid. All right, where are you going, Journey to the Savage Planet? Here. Next, Jusant. Okay, so Jusant is a game, another Game Pass game, that I had heard about when it came out. I didn't really remember the reception that it got when it came out, but I remember it being kind of a big thing when it was coming out. And I played it, and boy howdy, was I disappointed. The game is all about climbing. That's like the main thing that you do is you climb a very tall structure, mountain, if you will. And for that being the main mechanic, it is very, very buggy, for 1, 2, restrictive, and 3, simple. When I imagine that a game is going to be about climbing, I imagine that I'm going to have like the freeform climbing, something akin to like Genshin Impact or Breath of the Wild. However, that's not the case in this game. You are very, very, very restricted in what you can climb and where you can go by the developers, which I disliked very much. And what I found out as I continued to play was that you are literally not allowed to like walk off of a ledge. Like even if there's like ground 2 inches below you, you are not allowed to walk off the ledge. The game will physically not let you do it. And so the workaround that they had for this was that if you ever like attached your rope to the wall to start climbing, they turned off the player collision. So I had to attach myself to the wall just so that I could walk down a small ledge because it turned my collision off. And because it turned my collision off, that meant when that I was actually climbing, it would look really wacky because sometimes my body would just clip through everything because I have no collision. So I just really felt like it was a poor implementation of the mechanic. And because it's the main mechanic of the game, I was really expecting it to be a lot more solid and for there to be a lot more freedom involved with it. I was quite disappointed with Jusant. I don't know if I will say it's like a D tier game, but it definitely, out of everything on this list, was one of the worst games that I played. So it's gonna go bottom of C for sure. Yeah, I just really wanted it to be better. I wanted the climbing to be fun and engaging, and it just really wasn't for the most part. So unfortunate. Moving on, we've got a pair here, Kona and Kona 2. Kona is basically a first-person mystery game, mystery thriller in some cases, where you are a detective tasked with figuring out a mystery. In the first game, the mystery is like there's some disappearances in town, as well as some people that are frozen in ice, and so you get to walk around this town, put the pieces together, and kind of figure out what's going on. And then in the second game, you continue on with that story, but it's more of an action game. We'll go through these both at the same time. Kona 1 was also a game where it was very disappointing. I was intrigued by the premise, but there's a lot of mechanics in the game that kind of hamper the experience. So it's a detective game, right? So what I liked about it was that you're plopped into this like big town that's out in the mountains somewhere. It's snowing, it's cold, and you can kind of, it's open world basically. You can go in any order you want. You can visit the houses in any order you want, and you're just putting the pieces together. You can go anywhere you want, pick up the clues, and then kind of put everything together at your own pace in the whatever order that you want. I really liked that. I really like games that do that. What I didn't like was that on top of that, the game felt the need to also put survival mechanics in the game. And that I really just can't fathom because they were the most inconsequential, lazy implementation of survival mechanics that I've ever seen. You have a health bar, which will only ever go down if you fight the one enemy that exists in the game, which are wolves, and you have no obligation to fight those wolves at all. You can avoid them the entire game if you so please. You have a sanity meter, which again, also, you couldn't even tell like when it was going down. It basically like had no effect on anything that was happening at all. And then you had a cold meter. So if you got too cold, then you would die. But this was also pretty inconsequential because the checkpoint system was fireplaces and they were scattered all around the map. So there was very little times where you would ever be in a scenario where your cold meter would get low. And the game makes it even easier because at one point they give you a warm coat, which makes the rate of decay of the cold meter basically nothing. So that was kind of like, I don't understand why these mechanics are here. And then the game kind of butchers everything in the ending. So the whole time you're a detective, you're trying to piece together this mystery. And then the way that the game ends is that you figure out what's causing all this. It's this supernatural creature. And the end sequence is just you like running away from the creature, like on rails. It's a running sequence. And it's like the clunkiest, like goofiest running sequence ever. It was like so out of place in the game. I really didn't understand like why it had to be that way. It was really strange. So unfortunate because I liked a lot of aspects. Oh, and then the other thing is that the UI for the game was atrocious. Everything in the menus were radial menus. Literally everything was a radial menu. So like you pick up all these like clues throughout the game, right? And so every clue that you pick up gets added to a radial menu. A radial menu. So if I'm trying to like look through all the clues, and there's like 40 of them or something, I have to go through these like little tiny slices of the radial menu and try and pick out the one thing that I need. And then also some bugs here and there. And really bad pop-in. I'm remembering that as well. The the LODs, the whatever culling that they were using or level of details was like not set up correctly at all. So you could like very clearly see everything popping in front of you. So yeah, that's pretty rough, which again sucks because I really liked the main premise of the game and the main detective mechanics, but everything else kind of surrounding it was pretty bad. So this also is going to go bottom of C tier here. And then we move on to the sequel, which thankfully fixed a lot of the issues that I had. The UI is a lot better, the performance is better, and the survival mechanics are treated much more as in like they don't really care about it as much, which is good. The one thing that I will say is that it is unfortunate that this game, Kona 2, is much more of a linear action game than the first one, whereas the first one was more of a detective mystery game, which is unfortunate. That was the one part of the first game that I actually really liked, so I was kind of sad to see that the game was a lot more linear and focused more on combat. But I think as an overall experience, the second game was a large improvement over the first. It still wasn't amazing or anything, you know, it was just pretty, it just became like acceptable, you know? So that would definitely go in the B tier. Where do I want to put it? It's better than Anuchard. It's better than Escape Academy. Was it better than Crash 3? I think so. Another friend slop, finally. Liar's Bar. Liar's Bar is a fun game, but it's kind of in a shitty package. Unfortunately. I mean, they're just card games, right? With like, you know, the fun premise that you get to shoot each other and you get to lie. I love lying. But the game itself is kind of shitty now. Like, all the voices are AI generated. The models don't look great. There's very little to do outside of the game. It's just kind of whatever. I mean, it's fun. I have fun every time I play it. Again, it's more so... It's fun because I get to just like goof off with my friends and like lie to them, right? But that can only carry you so far, you know? It at least has the advantage over Bronzebeards, where it's like, that's a game where I can just pick it up at any point and be like, yeah, I could play this. And you know, they're adding more stuff to it, more characters, more game modes, stuff like that. I don't think it can really evolve much farther beyond than what it is currently. It's fun, but it definitely could be better. I don't think it's really any better than a C tier game. It's just like pretty mid for the most part. All right, moving on. We have a game called Lil Gator Game. This is another game that I played for Game Pass. Very cute. I don't know how to describe what kind of game it is, but it is another one of those games where it's like you have an open map and you just kind of go around and like interact with all the NPCs and like solve puzzles in like whatever order you want to. And those kinds of games I really do like a lot. I like having the freedom to like go around and do and check things out in the order that I want to, and like finding pieces of puzzles in one area that I have to use in another area and things like that. I really enjoy that. So this game spoke to me on that level. It's a very cute game. A lot of content, surprisingly, and there wasn't really anything that I can think of that was like a criticism of the game. It was really well made. It was endearing, charming. I had fun the whole time. I really liked it. I don't think it's amazing. You know, it's pretty simple for the most part. Not in a bad way, but I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing it. So I'm going to put that at the top of B tier. Better than Alan Wake. All right, Little Nightmares. I don't have to give an introduction to this game. I'm sure most of you know what that is. Played it for the first time on stream. Had a lot of fun. I liked it a lot. Honestly, the main criticism that I have of the game is that it's just the first Little Nightmares. And what I mean by that is like, it's a little on the shorter side and the puzzles are a little on the simpler side. But I think what it's going for, it's executed really well. It just makes me kind of look forward to playing the sequels, even though I've heard Little Nightmares 3 is pretty bad. But no, I enjoyed it a lot. It was very fun. You know, the leg up that it has on games like Cocoon and Limbo is that it has the AIs that you have to kind of like maneuver around as you're doing all of these puzzles. And the AIs are like, that's genuinely pretty stressful sometimes. The one thing I will say is that the AIs are a little bullshit at times. Sometimes they will like grab me through a wall or like notice me from very far away, which I was a little unfortunate, but that just kind of is what it is. And I specifically played the DLC with it as well, which further enhanced my experience and kind of tied things together in a very nice way. So very solid. I liked it a lot. A tier. Now we move on to a game called Maquette. I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but the game called Maquette, and I'm not surprised that the reviews for it are mixed, because I did not like this game very much and was on my top 10 worst games that I played last year list. It's a puzzle game with the... Oh wow, that's the word that I use to describe it as well. It's a recursive puzzle game. And what that basically means is that you're solving a puzzle on like 3 different levels. One is like normal sized, one is like extremely large sized, and one is like extremely tiny. So you can make yourself large, small, and like all the objects around you can also be made large and small. So the problem is with this game is that since that is the main mechanic, I'm impressed that they got it to work, but since it is the main mechanic, it does not work very well. A lot of the times it's very, very buggy. So for it being the main mechanic, I really did want it to like work better, and a lot of the times it just didn't. And then beyond that, the game also did have a story, and the story is like a love story about this like guy who had a girlfriend and then they just like fell apart. And I just thought it was like so bleh, so ho-hum, so like unoriginal. It was not treading any new ground in the slightest, so I just was not invested in it at all. And yeah, just kind of buggy, very buggy in a lot of ways. What else did I say about this game? Oh yeah, the music. Every once in a while, there would be this track that played like at the beginning of every chapter that was like so loud, and it had vocals. So like, it's extremely loud music with these like singer in my ear while I'm like trying to focus my attention on a puzzle game at the beginning of every chapter. And I was like, dude, can we like stop with this, please? Half of the game is like not puzzles. Half of the game is just walking sim. So that was also kind of unfortunate. Yeah, I was, I don't want to say disappointed because I didn't really have any expectations for this game, but I was just kind of unimpressed. It was very dull and buggy, so that goes in D tier. Was not a fan. I would not recommend playing that game. All right, so now we got an interesting one. So I put Marvel Rivals on the list. Now this technically shouldn't be here, quote unquote, because the game came out in December of 2024, and that's when I started playing it, but it's close enough, and it's the game that I played probably the most last year. I started playing it in December and became addicted to it. I am a ex-Overwatch player, so, and even though I was an ex-Overwatch player, when Marvel Rivals was announced, I wasn't really that, like, interested in playing it, but then I got sick, like, right around when the game came out, so I was just stuck at home for a while. So I was just stuck at home for, like, 2 weeks, so I was just like, you know what, it's free, let me give it a try, and then I played it, and I was like, oh my god, this game's awesome. So it was filling the hero shooter void, shaped hole in my heart that was left from being an ex-Overwatch player, and I will never go back. Overwatch sucks so bad. So yeah, I've been playing Rivals for most of the year. I did take a break around summertime. Like, I didn't play like season 4, like that's the break that I took. And I do still think that Marvel Rivals has its issues. Mainly, the game is very dictated, like the neutral of the game is very dictated by ultimates. Like, ultimates are super strong and they charge really, really fast. And I think that's like my biggest complaint. And the thing that I think that they should fix the most about the game is that they need to just like blanket make ults charge a lot slower than they do currently, especially for supports. The support role in Marvel Rivals is the strongest role by far, and I really don't think it should be that way. I'm glad that the supports are strong, but your winning and losing is basically like decided on who has the better supports and who is better at using their ults. as a support player. So that kind of makes the game a little bit more trivial at times, but you know, that's an issue that can be solved. I have a lot of fun with Rivals. I enjoy it. It's definitely more fun playing it with friends. And what I like is that the developers are very responsive to the player base and community feedback. They make a lot of good changes for things that people want to see, and if there's issues, they fix them really quickly. And they just recently announced that they're already starting, not already, but they're starting their initiative to reduce the file size. So like the next update's going to reduce it by like 15%, which is really good. And I would say that they are very consumer friendly when it comes to monetization. They've been kind of moving away from that a little bit. They still do things that are very nice, like making battle passes permanent if you buy them, as well as like event passes and stuff like that. And, you know, doing lots of bundles in the store. But what they used to do is that basically every skin that they used to release was permanent. Now they're kind of moving away from that, and there's a lot more like limited time skins, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm not a person that spends a lot of money on Marvel Rivals anyway, so you know, I'm a broke college student, so it doesn't really bother me that much. So yeah, I think Marvel Rivals is definitely very solid and very fun. I'm glad it exists. I hope to see it continue to improve. They definitely can make some gameplay revisions. I do think that the decision to do a new season like every 2 months is a little bit too quick, but oh well. I like it. It's definitely one of my faves this year. I enjoyed playing it. Especially with friends. And I think it'll go here. Okay, friend slop number 3, MIMESIS. So, if you didn't hear about this game, basically the premise of MIMESIS is that it's lethal company, but the entire time you are going to be hunted by AIs that look like you and sound like you. So, as you play the game, there's this AI model in the background that gets trained on like your voice and your actions. And so, as you're going throughout the little areas looking for loot, every once in a while, one of the AIs, one of the MIMESIS will pop up and try and pretend like it's like one of you. So, very cool concept. I like that angle. However, it's not implemented very well, unfortunately. I hate to say it's not implemented very well. And the reason for that is because, well, the game is still new, so, you know, it's got to do some more training, but the voice quality of the lines that it plays, that the AI plays, are like significantly worse than like the normal mic qualities from the actual friends. So you can just immediately tell which one is the AI. It's not a guess. Like, there's no suspense. It's very, very rare that the AI will trick you into thinking that it's a real person. So that's kind of unfortunate. And so at the end of the day, it's basically just a Lethal Company clone with like a very bare bones Lethal Company clone with nothing else that really makes it that unique. It has a like radiation meter, which is one thing that Lethal Company doesn't have, but it's barely present in the game at all. Like that was almost never an issue. I don't think it ever was an issue anytime we were playing it when I played it on stream with friends. So I just think it needs more time to be a fully fleshed game, but as of right now it's really kind of just nothing, so I'm gonna put it at the top of D. Next. All right, so let me explain. As you all know, I have Game Pass, and there was a little game called My Friend Peppa Pig that was leaving Game Pass, and so I checked to see what games are leaving. I looked to see how long it would take to beat the game and get all the achievements, and how long to beat said it would only take an hour. So I was like, you know what the hell, why not? And I played it, and it was about as good as a Peppa Pig game could be. So basically that means it wasn't a game at all. It's a little game made for babies, even more so than Disney Princess Enchanted Journey. At least Disney Princess Enchanted Journey was like trying to be a game. My Friend Peppa Pig isn't even like really trying to be a game for the most part. It's just kind of like nothing. It's just nothing. So we don't have to talk about it anymore. I'm just gonna slap it in F tier. and move on. Next, we have a game called Open Roads. So Open Roads is your pretty standard walking simulator with an emotional story that's trying to tug at the heartstrings and ultimately just ends up being very average and not that interesting in the end. The one interesting thing that I will give it is that it does have these like hand-drawn sprites that are used for the character portraits that are very cool. But as you can see, the rest of the game is just your typical normal looking 3D game. So honestly, like having the hand-drawn sprites makes the rest of the game look worse in comparison. It's just like very shoddy 3D models. Like look at this right now. Like what you can like see the difference in like the nice hand-drawn sprites sitting in this like really low poly 3D car. So that's kind of unfortunate. And then, you know, the story itself is just whatever. It's a story about a mom and her daughter, and they're trying to figure out some sort of family secret. Yeah, long lost family secrets. I promise I'm not reading these when I'm saying that. And so they go on like a road trip to like go uncover some secret about their family past. And it's just not that interesting or engaging. I'm not that emotionally invested. The game would also do this funny thing as well, because you would have to pick up like some objects in the 3D environment, and you would pick up an object and then the camera would shift so that it could like show the player portraits, the 2D hand-drawn portraits. But the camera would sometimes shift in a way where you could still see the 3D model that you picked up in the background, so it would just be floating in empty space while the cutscene was happening. That happened to me a couple times and it was pretty funny. So yeah, very middle of the road, mid-game. Definitely a C tier. I do think it was probably worse than Brothers. I think I'd put it here, but it was better than Jusant. Jusant actively made me upset. Okay, so now we have a very interesting game, and this is another example of a game that I started before 2025, but with how the game works, you basically replay the game from the beginning anyways, so I'm including it on this list because this was the year that I actually went back, started it over from the beginning, and finished it. It's a game called Overwhelm, and Overwhelm was the game that I listed as the worst game that I played last year. I really did not like this game, and I would go as far to say that it is a poorly made game. It's a game that contradicts its own design and feels like it was not tested at all. So basically the premise is that it's a Metroidvania where your goal is to defeat 5 bosses, and you have 3 lives to defeat all 5 bosses. And then once you defeat the bosses, you have to go all the way back to the beginning where you started and escape on a timer. The game's called Overwhelm because the whole premise is that you have 3 lives, but every time you lose a life, the game gets harder in the sense that you can see less of the screen, and the bosses that you fight get more difficult as you beat them. And the enemies get more difficult as you beat them as well. Now, the premise itself would be cool and fine, but the problem is that just the way that everything that is implemented in this game is just bad. Like, I can't sugarcoat it any more than that. It's just bad. But the main thing is that there's just a lot of choices made that don't really help you, that seem unintentional. So some of those being the camera. The camera is very clunky, and a lot of the times will get you killed because it will force you to enter a room that you can't see, and then there will be an enemy that's waiting right there, and they will just kill you in one shot because you die in one hit. So the camera actively works against you. The enemies actively work against you because, 1, they are silent sometimes for no reason. And then these are talking about the little enemies, not the boss enemies. And 2, their spawn locations and the type of enemy that spawns there is random. So sometimes you will get a combination that is basically impossible to get past, and you will die instantly, paired up with the camera, that doesn't let you see where you're going, and you will die so many times to just complete bullshit. Third thing, the gun that you shoot is so inconsistent. Sometimes it will hit an enemy and just do nothing. That was really annoying. Fourth thing, I mentioned that after you beat all the 5 bosses, the game wants you to run back to the point that you spawned on a timer, which is completely contradictory to how the game is designed, because again, you want to go slow so that you don't die in one hit to an enemy that is just off screen that you can't see because the camera won't move that far. But now we're gonna throw all of that out the window and make you run really fast into enemies that you can't see and have no time to react to, and you will just die over and over and over trying to do it. And it's funny because the game knows that it's kind of bullshit in that way, because there's a bunch of cheats that you can turn on in the menu that actually make the game tolerable. So I'm like, I really hate when games and game developers do that, where it's like they make a game that's hard on purpose, but then they like basically like chicken out of that design philosophy by adding cheats in the menu. And it's like, well, yeah, but you can just like not use them. Well, it always seems to be the case where it's like they put these cheats in the menu because they know that without them, you're going to have a bad time playing the game. So it's like, instead of doing that, why don't you just take the time to balance the game correctly? Why don't you just take the extra time to balance the game, have people play test it, so that you don't have to put the cheats in the menu, and you can make an experience that's actually enjoyable. That always pisses me off, and so it pissed me off here too. And so, yeah, there's just, this game really made me angry. It made me very angry. I could definitely safely say it's the worst game that I played last year. So much poor design, running rampant all over the place. Was not a fan. So that is going to go on the bottom of F. It was definitely the worst game that I played. All right. Moving on, we've got Party Animals. I played Party Animals for the first time last year. Party Animals is a very shameless clone of Gang Beasts. As such, does not come nearly close to the heights that Gang Beasts reaches. The game is fine, but it doesn't have that charm that Gang Beasts has. It also has, like, you know, the monetization of a modern game, so I'm gonna knock points on it for that. Yeah, just kind of clunky in a lot of ways. They tried to add like weapons to the game that you could pick up, but the way that you pick them up is like really annoying. I think generally the mini games that you can play are not as fun. There's also other game modes that are like way worse. Like they have an Among Us clone as a game mode, and it's really bad. It like is so unclear what you're supposed to be doing, and like it's knockoff Gang Beasts, but worse in basically every way. I don't think it's bad, but I played it once and like will probably never play it again. I don't think, unless for whatever reason my friends are really like, yeah, let's play Party Animals, let's play Party Animals. I just did not care. I really didn't care that much. I'll probably put it here. Now we get to the good friend slop. Peak was probably my favorite friend slop game. I'm just saying friend slop because it's an easy way to categorize the games. I know the term is used more derogatorily, but it's just kind of an easy way. It's a term that's been picked up by a lot of people. It's an easy way to categorize that game into its own genre. But I am using it just to describe the genre because it is actually a game that I enjoyed a lot last year. It was my favorite game in that vein of games that came out last year. And the reason for that is because it's a game that actually has an objective. I feel like with games like Lethal Company and R.E.P.O and stuff like that, they're fun, but I appreciate Peak for actually having a goal. In Lethal Company, R.E.P.O, you just kind of go on endlessly until you lose. And that to me is not as compelling as actually reaching a goal like you do in Peak. I also appreciate Peak for not going the horror route because that's like a very typical route that a lot of these friend slop developers do. So it's unique in that aspect as well. So yeah, I think it's well made. It's fun also to play on your own, which is a big thing for me. Obviously I played it with friends a lot, but it's also a game that works as a solo game. You can play it by yourself. It's not just locked to being a multiplayer game, so that's another plus. I really like the art style and the colors that they chose, even if, you know, sometimes the textures wig out and have some bugs here and there. I like all of the variety in the biomes. I like all the achievements that you can get in the game. I think the developers put a lot of love and care into it. So yeah, I think out of all the multiplayer games, like the multiplayer co-op games in this vein that I played, it was definitely my favorite. A couple things that I will criticize is that the physics system in the game is sometimes a little janky. The main gripe that I have with it is that the line between you taking fall damage and not taking fall damage is like really, really strange. Oftentimes I would go down a seemingly innocuous drop and I would take fall damage and I'd be like, dude, what the fuck? Why did I take fall damage? I barely fell at all. I think that they could probably make that a little bit more lenient. And then the other thing is that I like the new biomes that they've introduced, but it's very clear that the original game was never developed with those intended in mind. Because the original biomes basically all have one kind of gimmick that you have to deal with, but then the new biomes have 5 gimmicks and so much that you have to deal with at once, which kind of makes those a lot harder in comparison to the other biomes. And then the other thing is that the map rotates every 24 hours, and since the way that they've gone about updating the game is that some of the biomes will swap out with each other on certain days, it makes getting the achievements a little bit more difficult because you obviously have no way to guarantee what biome it's going to be every day, whereas before, you know, it was the same biomes every day, so it made getting the achievements a lot easier. And now you kind of just have to hope that you get the biome that you want, and if you don't get it, you gotta wait a whole 24 hours for the map to reset, and then again hope that you get the biome that you want. So that is also kind of annoying. That's less to do with the game itself and more to deal with achievement hunting, which I know not everybody cares about as much as I do. So I do still think that the game will go in A tier. I enjoyed it this year. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad that it's unique among all of the friend slot variants. So I very much appreciate that. Next, we have a game called PHOGS. PHOGS is a puzzle game, a co-op puzzle game, but you can play it solo, where, like Brothers, you control 2 different characters using the thumbsticks on your controller, and you have to solve puzzles in a physics-based environment. This game is a lot more focused on physics puzzles, which unfortunately is its detriment because the physics in this game are really wonky and very whack. Mainly everything is extremely floaty, especially the characters that you play as. You are so floaty and it feels really bad to play on a controller. So I wasn't a fan of that. I would have liked the game a lot more if it was fun to control because everything about the presentation of the game is really cool. I like the puzzles, I like the worlds. It's very cute, right? But controlling the 2 main characters just felt so bad. It just really felt bad. And that is honestly a death sentence for a game like this, a physics-based game like this, to have bad controls and bad physics. It's you really can't be doing that if that's your main mechanic of the game, you know? So, left a lot to be desired. And the final sequence was really long, and I didn't really like that much. Before the game was was level-based and world-based, so you had 3 different worlds and they each had a certain amount of levels. And then once you beat all the 3 worlds, you got into a secret 4th world that was just one extremely long puzzle. Or maybe not one, I think it was 1 or 2 extremely long puzzles. And the pacing at that point just was slowed down to a crawl. So that wasn't great. It wasn't horrible, but not great. Definitely a C tier game. Probably put it right here. Next we have Psychonauts, which is not a game from 2025. But a game from 2005. This was another scenario of, it was a game that was recommended. I mean, I knew about Psychonauts. It's not like I'd never heard of it, but it was a game that was recommended by my community, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think the game really shines in its writing, and its humor, and its wacky models. And the point that I kept bringing up the entire time that I was playing, I was like, man, Psychonauts would work so well as a mid 2000s cartoon. Like, I'm shocked that it never got any sort of like cartoon adaptation. It would have worked so well for that. So yeah, very funny game. I really liked that aspect of it a lot. What I liked a bit less was the gameplay. It's a 3D platformer, but since the game was made in 2005, there was some game design elements that felt really dated and like would be things that you wouldn't see in a modern game anymore. Like the inventory system. Like if I wanted to use an item that I had picked up, I would have to like go into my inventory, pick the item that I want so that I would be holding it in my hand, and then I would be able to interact with a certain NPC, and then the interaction would change based on the item that I was holding in my hand, instead of just like happening, you know? So it was just like, that was weird. The platforming for the most part was pretty tight, but there was some things that weren't as tight. There's some levels that were more annoying than others. Specifically, I think of the Godzilla level was a bit weaker. The underwater level was a bit weaker. The final level, specifically the final boss, was a bit weaker. The game's from 2005, so another issue that it has is that it like doesn't tell you how to do anything. It just kind of expects you to try everything and then figure it out. But it was solid. Definitely more memorable for its presentation, its writing, its scenario, its characters, more so than the gameplay. And it just makes me excited to play the sequel, because I feel like those will be the issues that get fixed in the sequel, you know? It's gonna keep all the good stuff that it had from the first game and just iron out all the kinks that it had. So I'm excited to play the sequel. But for Psychonauts 1, I definitely think it's just solid in the B tier. On the better side for sure. Probably... Did I like it more than Alan Wake? Ooh. That's a good question. That's tough. I think I did though. I do think it slightly wins out just for being so unique. Whereas Alan Wake, the first one, is really kind of average. All right. Almost done with the Friend Slops, moving on to R.E.P.O. R.E.P.O is probably my second favorite Friend Slop of the year. I liked R.E.P.O. For me, it's like very similar to Lethal Company. Its difficulty was a lot more approachable, and the models, you know, the characters that you play as are funnier, so that kind of makes it more entertaining than Lethal Company, in my opinion. Lethal Company is a very punishing game, so I like that about R.E.P.O, but it's just solid. I don't really have much complaints about the game. It's obviously one that just runs on forever until you die, which is, you know, whatever. But it's just solid. And it's definitely one of those games where it's like, you could come back to it anytime. Somebody's like, oh, let's play R.E.P.O. I'll be like, sure. I like R.E.P.O. Solid, for sure. For sure. I'd put it here. All right. We are down to the last row of games here. Almost done. Moving on to the next game. We have a game called Return to Grace. And Return to Grace was another walking sim that I played on Game Pass. There really wasn't much to do in terms of gameplay. It really was kind of mainly a walking simulator, with like the main focus being like the story that they're trying to tell. And thankfully, I actually was intrigued by the story and was engaged by the story. So that helps. I think, you know, there's some other walking sims on here that I wasn't as invested in. I do think Return to Grace at least had my attention the whole time. It's another scenario where like the voice acting in the game was like very surprisingly good, which was something that stuck out to me. There's a lot of like, the main characters in the game is that you're you, but then you have like a bunch of AIs that talk to you, and all the voice actors for the AIs were like very good. And I liked the premise and I liked the themes of the game. Even though the game has some like small element of choice in the game, but it doesn't really matter much in the end. So, but this was just another example of a game that I played. I was like, yeah, I liked it. It was solid. Didn't really have any complaints. Didn't really think it was amazing, but I liked it. So that's a B. Did I like it more than Botany Manor? I feel like I did. Yeah, I'll go there. All right, this next game doesn't have a title on the picture, but it's a game called Rolling Hills. I'm curious if this is on Steam. It is a game where you make sushi, but contrary to what the title says, it's actually a game where you don't make sushi. You don't make anything. It's made for you randomly. So the best description that I can give to this game is that it's like a mobile game that was somehow made for consoles. It looks like a mobile game. It plays like a mobile game. And I do mean this in like sort of a negative way. For a game called Make Sushi, Make Friends, I was very annoyed by the fact that I didn't actually make any of the sushi. And like all of the progression in the game felt very akin to like a mobile game. It was grindy. It was very simple. It looks like a mobile game. Like the art style is like very odd. So yeah, it's like mid. Again, it's just another example of like a mid game. I don't understand why it's a game that was made for console. I feel like it would have done so much better as a mobile game with microtransactions and not a game that I have to spend like 15 hours grinding through to get all the achievements. And like you just do the same thing over and over and over again. There's no variety to the game, which is why I like make that mobile game comparison. Yeah, I wasn't too stoked about this one. It's very, very mid, very, very mid. I don't blame it for being designed the way that it's designed. It just like, it should have been a mobile game. I don't know why it wasn't, but I would probably put it here. All right, I think this is our last friend slop of the list that I played last year, unless you count Outlast Trials, which I guess kind of is, but not really. Are we there yet? This one was very popular when it came out. I don't really know why. I played it with friends and it was just okay. I think the gimmick of it wears out very quick. Now, I will say that, like, you know, like Peak, I do appreciate the fact that there is a goal to get through, but unlike Peak, once you beat that goal, there's no reason to play the game again. So, it's not future-proofed. It does not have, you know, randomly generated, procedurally generated maps. You just have one map that you go through slowly, trying to get through. And, it's like silly, but also very clunky. And that's kind of the point, you know, you're driving the RV and you're trying to drive a stick shift, and that's part of the difficulty of the game. But that's part of it, and then there's also like a billion other things that you have to deal with. Like their RV takes damage so easily, it breaks so easily, then you have the bears that you have to deal with that like chase you at the same speed that you run. The fact that you can just pick up your friends at any given point and toss them off the map is funny, but I don't think it should be in the game. And then at the end of the day, you're just like driving, which I don't think is that interesting. There's only like so many obstacles that you can go over with the maps that they have laid out. I think they have laid out a second map since the game has been out. That's like a snow map, but I haven't tried it. And I just don't really feel compelled to try it. Played it once, don't really think I'll play it again. It kind of gives off the vibe that it was like made very quickly and shoddily, so not a huge fan. That's a C tier game right there. I'd probably, where do I want to put it? Did I like it more than Party Animals? Probably here. So moving on to Slay the Princess, another recommended game from the community. I liked this one. I was quite impressed. I was impressed with Slay the Princess just based on the amount of choice in the game that there was. I wasn't expecting there to be a lot of choice, and I was also just not expecting just how the game was in general. I was quite surprised by that. You know, the voice actress for the person that plays the princess is like very impressive, like how she did all these different characters that are the same character. And so I was very impressed by a lot of that. So I think the game is good in that regard. I can't put it like super high just because it is still only really a visual novel, and once you go through it once, you know, it kind of loses the mysticism. And so like after you beat the game once, you basically just playing it over and over again to just get all like the rest of the different screen caps and dialogue options that you didn't do before. I mean, it's really replayable since there's a lot to see, but you're not going to feel the same way that you feel the first time playing through the game. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the atmosphere that it provided. I wasn't really scared while I was playing it, but I was generally just kind of creeped out the entire time. It's just kind of eerie and unsettling, which is cool. It's a nice feeling. But yeah, I did like it a lot, and I think it's a very, very well-made game that surprised me. So I think in terms of things that I did play, bottom of A tier is pretty fitting. This next game here on the list is a game called Slayers X. It is a Doom clone. Basically, the premise of it is that it's this like kid that is like an edgy teenager that's making his own game, and it's a Doom clone. So it's like, that's the premise, is that you're playing Doom, but you're playing through what a teenage boy thinks is like cool and awesome, right? So kind of novel, I suppose, and some of the humor was okay, but some of it was like, okay, what are we doing? So, and as far as Doom clones go, I don't think it was like the most amazing one out there. Very average. Some of the sounds were really grating in terms of the sound design. Some of the sound effects that were playing were pretty grating. The one thing that I did think that was cool about the game is that like the one interesting weapon, I suppose you could say, slash attack, was that like at one point in the game you can shoot a giant like laser beam out of your hands, and you can use the laser beam to like traverse around the map if you shoot it at the ground, which I thought that was kind of interesting and a part of the gameplay that I liked a lot. But everything else was just very standard. A lot of the levels kind of looked the same for the most part. It had a really bad last couple levels, I do remember. The final boss is like really stupid and poorly implemented, and the pacing was starting to get off at the end because the levels kind of like generally were the same length for most of it, and then at the end you just like rapid fire through the last 3 levels, which kind of felt odd, which led up to that really bad final boss fight. So kind of left a bad taste in your mouth at the end, unfortunately. So yeah, it was just kind of meh, kind of average. I didn't really think it was extremely impressive. It did have the cool laser beam, but that was kind of it. Wasn't the worst thing ever. Where do I want to put it? I'm feeling somewhere around this area. I just don't know exactly where. Trying to order these has been difficult. I think probably here. All right, Super Mario Party Jamboree. I did play this a couple times over the course of last year. I've also watched a lot of content on it because there's a channel that I watch that plays it pretty frequently. So I know a good amount about the game. And as far as Mario Parties goes, it's a pretty good one. I haven't played too many, but I've played all the more recent ones, and it's definitely the best one in recent memory. So yeah, I think it's fun. I like Mario Party type games. I like the premise of the like companions that you can do. I do think it's kind of unfortunate that it takes so long to do their mini games. That's kind of like the one gripe that I have with it, but everything else, it's like solid Mario Party. There's good mini game variety, and now there's even more because of the expansion pack, so you know, it's even better, but it's solid. I enjoyed it. Here, next, almost done. We had another Game Pass game called The Big Con, which sounds like exactly what it is. It is a game where you con people. And so it's basically just like a puzzle game. You have some element of choice a little bit. You can kind of like choose how evil, I guess, how dastardly you want to be to solve some of the puzzles. You just go through different levels, talk to different people, try to find out information, con people, make money, stuff like that. It was pretty okay. I like the art style of it. The colors are very vibrant. The writing was kind of a little cringe at times, but you know, that's to be expected, I suppose. This is kind of just another game where I played it and it was good, and I didn't really have much else to say about it than that. I can't really think of anything that I super disliked about the game. I did like the art style. I thought it was maybe a little too long. It was dragging on a little bit towards the end. I guess my one gripe is that there are some like optional things that you can do, or it's like secret things that you can do, or choices that you can make that will unknowingly lock you out of making other choices. And that was kind of unfortunate. It's not really something that can be fixed, I don't think, but it was kind of unlucky in certain things, in certain scenarios where I did something and then wanted to do something else later on, but then I couldn't because I didn't realize that I like locked myself out of it. But overall, just a solid game. Probably lower on the list here. Probably like right here. As we reach the end here, we're reaching some of the games that I disliked more. So one of these is a game called The Case of the Golden Idol. It is a mystery game that is a point and click with one of the ugliest art styles I've ever seen. And clearly it's done on purpose, but that doesn't make it good. And the premise of the game, which you can see here, is that you're trying to piece together a mystery, but you're doing that using words that you find in the environment to fill in these sentences that are full of blanks. And this system got really, really shitty towards the end, because basically what would happen is that in the last levels, the entire sentence would be blank. So you just like wouldn't, or the entire like everything, every sentence, every word in the sentence would be blank. So you would just have like nothing to go off of. I'm actually shocked that this game has an overwhelmingly positive review on Steam. I did not like it at all. And I'm sure part of that is just a skill issue on my end, but like, it's ugly. It was really janky for being a point and click. It like did not work half the time. It wanted you to make so many leaps in logic to solve some of these things, especially towards the end when basically all of the words are blank. Like, I did not think it was very good. And I beat the whole thing, so, you know, I got there in the end. Even if I struggled a bit, I was not a fan at all. It's ugly and it wasn't fun. Those are my two biggest criticisms. Next, we have the Mortuary Assistant, which was... A lot of these games are horror games that my chat wanted me to play and my friends wanted me to play. Mortuary Assistant was highly requested, and for what it is, I'm kind of surprised because the game is extremely short and simple, and also you're never really in any danger for the most part. It's like all like smoke and mirrors, a lot of it, so you kind of just play through the game once and then like that's it. Really any reason to like replay it. I know that there's like multiple endings that you can do, but you're just doing the same thing over and over again. You're just embalming a body over, or preparing a body to be incinerated over and over again. The atmosphere like kind of gets to you again like the first time, but then once you beat it the first time, which isn't even that hard to begin with, that's just it. That's the game. And you just do that over and over and over again. And I'm pissed because there's an achievement the game wants you to do where you have to basically go through, I think, like 100 or 150 bodies, which is like insane. Because one playthrough of the game, you do 3 bodies. So like you have to play the game so much to get that achievement, which is insane. And really highlights how like kind of shallow the game is. There's just nothing to do. So I don't think the game is bad. I just think that it's a 1-hour game that you play through once and then that's it. There's nothing really more to it. So it just kind of left a lot to be desired, I think. And it is kind of unfortunate that like there really is no danger present in the game. Everything is just like jump scares trying to get you. And I know there is danger, but the danger is basically just a timer. And so if you just go too slow, then you lose. That's it. I kind of wanted more from it, unfortunately, and it just wasn't there. So I'm going to put it towards the bottom of C. Outlast Trials is not a game that I can really give a whole lot of opinion on because I didn't play it that often. I only played it a couple times with friends. And while I was playing it, I was just kind of generally confused the entire time, which is not the game's fault, I don't think. I was just playing it with friends who didn't want to give me the time to figure out what was going on. I think it's scary. It's cool. I like that there's a lot of stuff to do outside of like the main game. Like there's like a bunch of, I had fun playing the little mini games back at the home base. And I do applaud the fact that it seems like there is like a lot of content to the game. Like there's lots of different levels that you can do that are like completely different maps and different objectives, and they just like keep adding more stuff. So I do applaud the developers for that, but it's kind of just a game that I can't really say much about. And when I did play it, I didn't really think anything. I didn't really like it. I didn't really hate it. I was just like, yep, I'm playing a game. I'm along for the ride right now. Which again, that's not really the game's fault, but I think we can just put it in C and move on. Now this game, I'm curious to see the consensus on. So we've got another puzzle slash mystery detective game called The Rewinder. I'm surprised that this also has a very positive spread because this was another game that I really didn't like at all. So it is a 2D pixel game where the gimmick is that you are solving a mystery and you can rewind time. You're the rewinder, you can rewind time, right? Except you don't really rewind time. You're basically viewing past events in time, but you can't rewind them, which is why I find it really funny that this game is called The Rewinder. So basically, like, the main gameplay mechanics is that you view these past events, but they play like a video player, and you can't rewind it. You basically, like, have to look around the scene while it's playing and, like, find the things or, like, influence the past in specific ways at specific times, but you have to do it on a timer. You can't rewind. So I'm, like, really confused why the game is called The Rewinder when it doesn't even let you rewind the past events that play out. But I thought that was kind of funny. It's point and click with the support for a controller. It's really bad support for a controller. And the game is just generally very janky. Again, I was playing with a controller and the support for it was really bad. And so trying to, like, navigate the main mechanic as well as all the outside puzzles was like a chore and felt really bad. A lot of the game was like also not knowing where to go because it didn't explain anything well at all. I think this is another scenario where the game was not originally written in English and the translation, the localization was poor. It was very unclear a lot of the time what I was supposed to be doing or where to go. But then at the same time, it's also a game that you, like, can't fail. So you're just kind of along for the ride with poor controls and a story that's, like, not really that interesting in a game called The Rewinder where you can't rewind. So I was not a big fan of this one either. Last three, we have the sequel to Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion called Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. We switched genres to a roguelike, and this is a game where I really don't understand why it's a roguelike, because the roguelike elements are so small that they're basically non-existent. So the whole premise is that you are robbing a bank, and when you rob this bank, it's a roguelike. You go through the areas, you get different weapons, and you try and get as much money as possible so that you can upgrade yourself and find the end of the bank where, like, the secret treasure is hidden. I just thought that, like, it got very repetitive, like, very quickly, because again, the roguelike elements are basically none. The map layout of the bank does not change. It's the same every time. The only thing that does change is the weapons that you can use while you're fighting through the bank, which are mainly just weapons that are random drops from the enemies, and you can only hold 2 at a time. So you're not getting much variety on that front. And then each room also has a special door that leads you to a random area, which is the other roguelike element that's present in the game. But these doors are annoying because there's lots of NPCs that you can talk to, and some of those NPCs are in those, like, random rooms behind the secret doors. So sometimes you want to complete a mission or talk to one of those NPCs, and you just have to hope that you get lucky and the secret door that you're going through in each area has one of those random rooms with the NPC in it. So that was kind of poor design on their part. And yeah, just very repetitive. It was not, like, the best roguelike I've ever played, unfortunately, but not bad. I definitely think is better than some of the more middling things that I've played on this list. But as a sequel to the first Turnip Boy, I was kind of disappointed with the genre change. They didn't really go all the way. I'm thinking right here, I want to determine if it was better than Anuchard or not. All right, last 2 games. We got some interesting ones here. So first one, Uma Musume, obviously needs no introduction. I did play this once for stream. I had fun, I guess. I'm not gonna play it anymore, but I did play it once and I had fun. I think the game is extremely in-depth for what it is, which is quite surprising, but you know, it is a gacha game at the end of the day. Made by Cygames, so you know, all the models and stuff look nice. It's a very visually appealing game, and appeases the part of me that likes gambling, so I'm sure that does it for a lot of other people. It's not something that really engages me personally. And again, since it's a gacha, you're only gonna go so far as much as you're willing to pay or as how lucky you get. So, and obviously, you know, is gonna be a game that requires a good amount of time sink from you. I will say that it's at least not like as bad as some other gacha games where they like demand your attention every day. Uma does seem like it's a game that you can kind of at least, you know, pick up and drop at will. So I will give it credit for that, but I don't really need to say anything more about it. It's going in B tier. Where it's going, I couldn't tell you. Here. And then finally, we have Worms W.M.D, which is another game that I played for one stream. And I had a lot of fun. I like Worms as a concept a lot. I think everybody had a lot of fun. The specific rendition of Worms, the art style is interesting. And I'm not sure how I feel about the inclusion of the vehicles. I think they are. It makes the game a lot more chaotic, that's for sure. But they're not very balanced. I don't think that that's really the point, though, of Worms, to be balanced. I had fun. I had fun with the game. It was definitely a learning experience, too, playing it for the first time. I definitely want to... This is a game that I want to play more of. It's a multiplayer game that I want to play more of. I had a lot of fun with it, and that stream was a very good time. I think it could potentially be a game that is like AS for me, A or S for me, as I continue to play it more. But since my experience with it is so little right now, I do think it's probably just going to stay in B tier, probably right around where Mario Party was. Did I like it more than Mario Party? I'll probably put it right there, right next to Mario Party. And that's it. That is all 54 games that I played for the first time last year. I wanted to just go through everything that was new to me, that I experienced for the first time. And for the most part, you know, it seems like there was more good, or at least average, than bad. But there were a couple stinkers in there, for sure. Everything else was like average to good. And then I did play some really good games for the first time this year. I think that's it for our list. That was a big undertaking, and my throat definitely hurts.